Today we are going to go through insertion sort part 2, which is a problem under sorting section of algorithm on Hackerrank. So without wasting time, let us have a look on the problem statement. So in this problem, I will not read the statement line by line, so feel free to do it if you feel like you want to do it. But globally in this problem, we are supposed to sort an array using a specific sort. Here is the insertion sort. So the principle of the insertion sort has been described in the previous video, so don't hesitate to go and check and see exactly how it works. But I'm going to remind you how the insertion sort is actually working. What is happening is, at the beginning you have an unsort array, right? And what you're supposed to do is that you're supposed to sort the array. The principle of the insertion sort is that you consider a sub array being sorted, and then you add an element in that sub array in such a way that the array will still be sorted. What does that mean exactly? That means for this one, for instance, in order to sort this array using the insertion sort, you are going to consider this array, like the first one, being sorted, and then you are going to add this element into this subarray in order to have they both being sorted. So by doing so, you do have to remember that if you have an array consisting of only 3 and you want to add 4 to it in order to make it sort, you are going to have 3 and 4, so that's why you have it this way. The same here, now you consider this array being sort, and then you try to add this one in such a way that the whole array is still going to be sort, right? So basically you still have this. Now when you have this subarray and then you try to add this into this subarray in such a way that this still remains sort, you see that you are going to have something like this. So basically this is the idea of the insertion sort. Now in this problem, we are not just supposed to perform the insertion sort, we are supposed to print the state of the array after each iteration. So how will it look like? What will be our approach of solving this? So you see that after the first iteration, this is the state of the array. After the second, this is the state, and so on. So the program wants us to be able to print the state of the array after each iteration. So how are we going to organize ourselves to achieve this? So I'm going to make use of a couple of steps that I came up with that can help us to achieve the result. The first thing we are going to do is to iterate through the array from left to right. So we have an array here, and then we need to iterate through the element of the array. And then one thing important is that we need to start at index 1. Why? Because I just mentioned you need to consider a subarray being sorted and add the element into that subarray. So there is no need to start with the first element. You start with the second element, which is element at index 1, and then you try to insert it into the first subarray, and so on to the last element. So now, before inserting the element, what's going to happen? So what you need to do before inserting the element is that for each of the element, you need to compare to the element to the left. So okay, if you want to insert this element, while looping through here, you need to compare the element with the element directly to the left. It doesn't make sense here much, but here it does make sense. If you are here, you want to insert this element. So this is the element you want to insert, right? What you are going to do is that you are going to start at element directly before, and then you compare this one with this one, the one to the left. If in fact you compare this one with the one to the left, if they are actually if the one to the right is actually greater, you perform a swap, like you erase this one here, and then and so on until you find element which is actually lower. So it will give something like this. So once you perform the comparison, if the element is less than the element to the left, you shift the element and continue, and you compare until is the correct position. So you are going to perform, okay, let us take this one for instance, this subarray. You take this one, you are going to store this one somewhere, you're going to compare this one with the element to the left. Is this one actually less than this? Yes. So you erase here, this one will give you 7 and 7. You continue the comparison. Is this element actually less than 4? No, it's not less than 4. So this is where you're going to break the loop, and then at the end you are going to put the current element to the position, which will be here. So now at the end of the comparison and the element, you insert the element at its position, what we just did at the last step, inserting the element. Once the element has been inserted, in this case you need to print the state of the array. What will it look like in terms of code? So it will look something like this. So now you first start with the loop like we said, and then see here the loop is starting at position 1 because we consider the first element to be like in the first sub array, which is actually sort, right? And then something important, we store the current element, like the element we are going to perform the comparison with. Once we have it, now we move to the second step, which is the step where you are going to look for each of the element and compare to perform the comparison. So you grab the element and then you try to compare with all of the element in the sort array. So here's the comparison, and then you're gonna perform the arrays we were just talking about if we are not yet at the first element, and then we realize that the element is actually the element at position G. I mean the element we are on need is actually greater than the current element. The current element is actually the target element, like the element we want to insert. If it is the case, then we perform this operation. And at the end of the loop, we insert the element at this position. This is the insertion. And then after the insertion, we print the array. So this is just a basic for loop to print the array, and at the end I just go to the new line because I want the next iteration to print the array in a new line. So that's why I have this. So at the end of this is the last step. At the end of this, you can easily run and see what it gives. Let us run and see. So we have a congratulations, everything is green. Let us submit and see what it gives. Perfect, nice, everything is green. So this was my approach of solving this. I hope you do enjoy it. Now before closing the video, let me share with you some few tips that can help you to be able to debug your code or find solution if you're not able to have it done. So one of the things that you may fall into is to off by one error. So here it's really important to understand that you are starting at position 1 and then the last index should be less than, and if you put less or equal here, you'll find yourself being out of range. That is something you don't want. So really take care of the index here to not fall in the trap of being out of range. The second thing that you should really take care of to do not mess up is to incorrect comparison. So if you find yourself here messing up with the comparison, you are definitely going to have something sort differently, right? So take care of the comparison, make sure that you perform the right comparison in order to really have the expected result. And the last thing that you should really take care of is not using a temporary variable. So what does that mean exactly? You see this current, we create a current variable here which is actually used to perform the comparison. If by mistake you don't keep the current variable here and then you perform the erase here, it will affect the value at that position and then you will not be able to have accurate result. What does that mean exactly? Let us take for instance here, if I don't keep this value in a temporary variable, When this one will erase this one, I'm going to lose this value here, and at the end of the day I may not come out with the right result. So that's why it's really important to have this into a temporary variable that you're going to use here to put at the right position. So this was my approach of solving the video. This was my tips. I hope you do enjoy it. Feel free to leave me a message in the comment section. I'll be really happy to interact with you regarding this. Take care, keep learning, stay focused.